You are.
Moss.
It says you are live. I'm not live. It must be you.
I am live.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wendell's
Hi.
live.
Hello.
We're all live. What
yes.
else would we be?
I hope so, right? Hello, welcome to this is a very special day.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Wait, is something happening to Wendell?
No, because Wendell's
Yeah.
here. It's
The
always
live
a special
stream
day.
started.
Yeah. That
And it was like, boop.
Ding. Notification. Hello. We're here. This is the pre-show, Wendell. I don't know if you remember, the pre-shows is where things happen that shouldn't
Anything
happen.
goes.
Anything goes.
Yeah.
Well, that's good.
Yep.
Because I was like, I need to share the live stream. And then it was like, there it is. There it goes.
Oh, yeah. No, share it. Take your time. Do what you need to do.
Can
Hang
we
out.
Can we talk about how good like the live streams from the Artemis cockpit are?
I mean, they're okay. I think they could be better.
They're at the moon, man. What more do you want? What do you want, Adam?
I mean, sometimes the bit rate from the camera that's outside is a little low.
Did you not see the Nutella fly by?
I didn't see. I heard about it. Yeah. But
They were
that'd be
packing
pretty
up
cool.
lunch, and all of a sudden, a jar of Nutella. It didn't even look like space Nutella. It just was a normal tub of Nutella like you'd get at the grocery store, just whipped across the cabin.
Sounds like product placement.
I mean, it kind of is. I feel like somebody probably got a note about taking the labels off of things. Like we shot video there once a long time ago at Test.
At the moon?
No, at NASA, and they were incredibly adamant that we not mention any brands of anything, including like hot sauces. I did a video because I'm gonna break the law now. They do the coffee that they package is all dehydrated, right? So it's like Folgers Crystals type. Like they make the coffee and then they turn it into dehydrated coffee crystals. You add water because you can't like brew coffee in space because no gravity.
You can try.
It would people would die literally. So I asked what brand it was because like this is the best dehydrated coffee I've ever had. I want to get it when I go backpacking. And then we did a video where the two chefs we brought tasted the coffee, and within 45 minutes of posting that video, which was not on the list of videos we had pre-approved by NASA, just to be clear. We got a note from the people at NASA that were like, yo, you got to take that video down because you say the brand of the coffee. It's Hula Girl. Hula Girl is the brand of the coffee.
Wow.
In space.
Okay, now I gotta.
So now we're going to be on the
How
bad
does it
list.
sound? Hula Girl.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I guess I shouldn't just Google search Hula Girl. That doesn't
You gotta
really
put
help me.
Hula
I gotta
Girl
put coffee.
coffee.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there you go. Good job, Adam.
It's good stuff, though.
Wendell, hey, it's been a bit. Good to see you.
It's been a bit. It's good. Yeah, no, I don't know. I don't have much. The Artemis stuff is like mind-blowing and amazing. It's like, we're going back to the moon. This is incredible. If only there weren't all this other terrible news to overshadow that.
Look.
It's so weird.
You're not wrong.
Yeah. I think the last time I saw, I didn't see you at CES, did I?
Nope.
So it
I
must
usually
have.
don't do CES because it's like, why?
Yeah. Well, I guess the last time we saw you then was when we were at the Intel Fab Tour, huh?
I think that might be the
No,
only
that
time
was
we've
something.
met. Wendell and I have met. Maybe we were at an AMD thing a couple years ago.
Yes.
Yeah.
A couple of years ago. It was fun.
Nice.
It's all good.
Yeah.
Like I like those kind of things. I'm looking forward to Computex, assuming that it's not global thermonuclear war or whatever.
So you're going?
I'm gonna try. Yeah.
Okay, I'll be there. So let's connect. Let's
Yeah, that'll be
grab
fun.
some Hula Girl
But
coffee.
Are you gonna like connect on LinkedIn and
Yeah.
like set up a meeting? Is that what's happening?
Yeah.
Are you gonna send him
Can
your
I-
Calendly so that he can pick a time on
Yeah.
your busy schedule?
Talk to my assistant?
Wait, did you just point at me?
No, I went this way,
Okay.
backwards.
that's
my
good.
assistant's over there. Who knows? We got a $4.99 super chat from one Clay2792, my favorite number. Thank you so much. Said, just finished my recent build last night. There's a 5 to pay my successful boot tax to the scene.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yay,
Successful.
Nice.
Okay. Is that a thing you do? Is it you charge people for successfully posting?
You every time you successfully post, the money goes into the jar. So when it doesn't successfully post, you can go into the jar and get the things like, well, I'm inconvenienced, but at least I've got this jar of cash.
Oh, dang.
I
That's
assume that
awesome.
was like your memory fund for like, oh God, this memory's bad. I got to go buy more memory. I hope there's $1,000 in here.
Yeah.
$1,000 for the 8 gigabytes of memory that'll buy you.
Yeah, there you go. Boom. Got him. Yeah, congratulations. Love it. Love it when it boots. All right, we got a show.
Hamsters are looking good.
Yeah.
I think we're good to go.
Yeah, hamsters are just over there doing their stuff.
We don't even have, like, nobody even monitors it. It says excellent when I look at the stream thing, here, which is
excellent. You got to say that when you read it.
We need to, you know,
Wait.
I'm gonna put in a feature request for OBS that they need to have a stats page that I can make big enough that I can read it from 15 feet away.
Oh,
Call that the Will Smith feature.
yeah. It's
Yeah.
a good call. I'm gonna do the number thing, so when I sync it up in post, I can see how far off.
I already did it. It's good.
While we were recording.
When you were in the bathroom,
okay.
Wendell and I did it, and
Great.
it was 120 milliseconds.
Sweet.
Perfect.
Love it. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Great. Wendell, you ready to get the show started?
What?
Yeah. What am I going to say? What should I say?
You usually say, "Hi, my
In
name is
this episode
Adam.
of the-
I live on the 6th floor. I live upstairs from you."
You're outing me.
What? We're on the 6th floor here.
Oh, here. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. I don't live here, though.
Sure
So
you
it's
don't.
inaccurate.
Whatever. I believe you.
All right. Here we go. You ready? Are you ready? You ready? Well, you got to get the thing ready.
It's ready. I'm okay to go. Nope, that's not it. Nope. Nope.
Wendell, we're professionals here.
Look, we're
Oh
getting
yeah.
One of these days.
there. Okay.
All right.
Cut
All right.
then fade, right?
Yes. But you got to take down the full nerd. We'll
it's
start
good.
soon. Okay.
Oh.
Yeah. Because we don't have that. We don't need that during the intro. There we go. Look at that. Boom. All right.
Just
Cool.
taking it down for after the intro, but here
Love
we
it.
are.
What are we talking about? Oh,
RAM.
yeah.
It's the only thing we ever talk about. Random access memory.
Here we go.
Oh, I like Hullbreaker Mods' idea. This is Adam Carolla, and welcome to the Man Show. That's perfect. Totally relevant.
Copywritten.
Yeah.
In this episode of the Full Nerd, we talk about what are we talking about?
Nailed it.
Oh yeah, Linux. We're talking about Linux gaming and B70, Intel Arc B70. All right, here we go. We got it. In this episode of the Full Nerd, we talk about Linux gaming and the Arc B70 with one Wendell Wilson from Level1Techs.
Hello.
Boom. And welcome everyone to episode 393 of the Full Nerd Podcast, PCWorld's premier podcast, offering level-headed opinions about enthusiast PC news. I am your fill-in host, Adam Patrick Murray, but I am not alone. I have two of my favorite people here with me.
Aw.
One of them can't be here, so I had Wendell come on. Hello, Wendell.
Hello. How's it going? I'm just hanging out.
Yeah, you're just hanging out in a bunker somewhere in the east. We have no idea where, but it's somewhere.
Neat.
Yeah, okay. And then to my left
Yeah.
is one Will Smith.
Hi, welcome
I tried to
to
give
Earth.
you a subtle dog dig, but
Yeah, I
didn't
got
really
it.
work.
I picked it up. It was nice. I appreciate
Did you
that.
pick up what I was putting down?
I picked up what you were putting down. I'm gonna pick it back up and shove it someplace later.
The verticals and horizontals continue to work over there, right?
Yeah, I got this locked down.
Nice. All right.
Although I got to shout out friend of the show, Deotis in chat, who said, "Yo, you could at least get Will the one with all the buttons and knobs, Stream Deck."
We did talk. Well, we talked about the one with the extra knobs and
Yeah,
buttons.
more buttons.
that just came.
I mean,
Well, it hasn't come out yet.
this one only has 15 buttons. This is a peasant.
It doesn't
number
even
of
have any
buttons.
knobs.
No knobs.
Yeah.
I can't knob anything.
But you could
from
have
here.
up to 6 knobs and
Yeah.
30 buttons.
36, I think. I think it's 9 times 4.
For wow,
It's a great
okay.
number of buttons.
That's
it's,
a lot.
It's many, many buttons.
Yeah. I'm gonna try to press Wendell's buttons here
Oh boy. Wow, that's just
on
going
this
for it.
episode. Yeah. Just, really poke at you. I'm just kidding. I love you, Wendell. Thank you for coming on the show, especially last minute. I appreciate it.
No worries. I'm glad to be here. It's always fun hanging out with you guys because it's always fun to see what you guys are up to. But also, just the Q&A and the chat and everybody. It's fun.
Yeah, it's good times. Actually, I do want to catch up with you before we get to the news. We are going to talk about Linux gaming share. We're going to talk about your testing of the Intel Arc Pro B70. Is that the name, right?
Yes.
Officially,
Arc Pro.
Arc Pro.
Large
yeah.
battle mage.
Look at that.
In my heart.
But if you want to bring up the zero lower, but first, I think we should. Nope. Yeah, let's do the intro again. Here we go.
It's my first Stream Deck ever.
Love it.
Damn it.
I think we should catch up, Wendell, because it's been a bit.
Okay.
Last time I saw you in person and we talked, we were just barely on our Linux journey. You know, we had
Yeah.
you on the Dual Boot Diaries, the weekly podcast
the
where
sixth
two
episode or
longtime
something.
Windows users learned to
Yeah.
use Linux daily. We are now 6 months in, Wendell, and I'd like to give you a little update on where we're
Okay.
at. So
That sounds amazing.
In that time, let's just TLDR real quick. In that time, I've settled on Fedora. That's my main distro.
Adam literally tried every single distro available.
Almost every single one. What do you think? What do you think about Fedora?
Historically, I've always really liked Fedora. I was not a fan of what Red Hat did with CentOS and some of the other moves that Red Hat made with Ansible and other things. But Fedora is still a really solid distro, and there's a lot of engineering that's going into it, and there's a lot of like first-party development around Fedora as a Windows replacement. So that's a perfectly reasonable distro.
Okay, good to hear. Will is still rocking CachyOS. But since then, he's also gotten knee deep into tiling window managers. He's using Neri and Noctalia shell. And
I actually think that us talking about it in Arizona was the thing that started me down this path, because I was like, hey, I've heard about this tiling window manager thing. And you're like, you should check that out. It's totally gonna, it's gonna bake your noodle. And indeed it did. So I'm
all about it.
I'm all tiled all the time. Always be tiling. That's what we say here at PCWorld.
What's your keyboard shortcut to make the window not tile or float?
To not tile or float?
Like to toggle tile or float mode.
Look, do you think I need a float mode keyboard shortcut? No.
He'd never be floating, is what he says.
So there's two apps that float. I have that webcam control app that lets me do exposure, and like it aims the gimbal on my webcam at home. Like it auto sets it facing me, which I like. That floats. But it's like I pop it open. I have a keyboard shortcut to pop that's Win Shift C, or sorry, Super Shift C opens that. Then I mash Control 2. Then I hit Super Q and shut that thing back down. It's like a 3-second transaction. So
yeah, that's my life basically with like OBS. So like OBS and Steam, all things Steam. The main Steam window floats, and the Steam Friends window floats, and a couple other windows, but I use Super G to toggle between them, which is the same shortcut key that Cosmic uses for theirs. So like Cosmic has like a really good tiling, like they imagined, and so I was like, oh, they went with Super G as well, but I just toggle that on and off. And sometimes that's useful, but
I really like the thing that Cosmic does, where you can have workspaces that are tiling and workspaces that are all like normal floating windows. I've gone Neri, so I've gone full pervert mode, and it's just like an infinite scroll of windows. So my friends list is just full height on a secondary monitor, and it just lives smashed in between two other slightly larger windows.
It's fortunate or unfortunate, because once your brain gets used to how tiling behaves, when you have to use something else, it's like, why is like the windows could just arrange themselves in a reasonable fashion? Why do I have to do this? This is so dumb.
Nice. Yeah. Here's another thing. Will has done pull requests. He's
I've
contributed. Yeah, he's a contributor
nice.
now.
Yeah, I'm responsible for a whole arm of for like 3 different AIOs working now with Liquid Control and HWMon. So
nice, excellent.
Yeah. So if you have an Asus Ryujin 3 and your temperatures come up in cooler control now, you're welcome, America.
Yeah. Send him money.
So I too have gone down that rabbit hole. There's a new thing called Simon, and so on the Level1Techs GitHub, it's Siomon, SIOMON, but it's sensor IO monitor, and it was an itch, and so like it's a new way of dealing with not just HWMon, but it's an interface for HWMon, HSMP, which is like a low-level thing for Threadripper and Epic CPUs to show you telemetry about like the fabric speed and core clocks and a lot more insight that you normally get, but also a different interface for like the Nuvoton chipsets, because like I'm noticing there's quite a bit of lag time for support there. It's really annoying. And so the whole architecture of Simon is to make it extremely low friction to add more boards and more sensors and more sensor chips, more super IO chips basically, but also plug into the kernel stuff. And so like it's kind of nuts, because it's already at over 100 GitHub stars, and we haven't really I haven't even done like a full video on. I've just been like, we're kind of doing this thing, see how it goes, and everybody is like, this is amazing, but it's still got a lot of bugs.
That's awesome.
That is awesome. Yeah, well, I mean, we're still going strong on Dual Boot Diaries, and we still refer to you as the final boss. So We'll still get there.
I was just say the other thing I've done is I switched my streaming machine. Like I've appliancedized it. It's all Linux now, and basically when I boot up, it's ready to go. It works like an old TriCaster almost, where I just have a bunch of buttons to press, and I don't have to have a keyboard or mouse or anything connected to it at all, which has been a transformative experience. And I don't think I could have actually done that on Windows.
Not only that. He started down a journey of talking about maybe making his own distro where it's the utility is just for a streaming box.
I made a joke.
It's not a joke.
It was a joke.
It's not a joke.
And then people have run.
But you know a guy who can help you make a distro.
Yeah.
So
it's still, like
it's
this
easy,
is
right?
The path.
Yeah.
I mean, when we started the channel a million years ago, that was the first. Like our streaming machine is and has always been Linux for the appliance-like nature. And knock on wood, it has never let us down. And we use Magewell hardware for the capture, and it's also like Linux first.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, we have some Magewell cards. Have you heard of any streaming distros that are just for these appliance-like kind of use cases?
No, not off the top of my head.
This could be the first one.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Right?
You could start with Arch and then just build a custom Arch. Although, Fedora, for spinning your own distros, Fedora has the best tools for that.
Really?
Yeah.
Another reason why I picked Fedora.
Yeah, I knew that's why you were there. We could talk about the Linux stuff forever, but I feel like we should.
Anyway, I also wanted to catch up with you because speaking of videos, you've been making a lot of videos recently, especially you were at GTC.
Oh, yeah. I am all in on AI, and everybody is decidedly not all in on AI.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you, because I was just like, man, I expected to go watch some of your videos and just see the chat in the YouTube chat just be completely roasting you 24/7, but no, everyone over there seems to also be into it. Like, how come you are so into AI and everybody else hates it?
Everybody, I'd say it's probably about 30%. There's definitely a segment of the audience that's very loud and very anti-AI, but I like, if you look at, I could explain the AI thing. I'm really bad about like rambling and going off. So like, keep me honest here. Keep me from going.
No, please.
Thing. But like leaded gasoline and chlorofluorocarbons. Thomas Midgley Jr. He's the single most ecologically destructive human being to have ever lived. He invented chlorofluorocarbons and leaded gasoline. And if it wasn't him, it probably would have been somebody else. But we can put a name on it.
Okay.
And leaded gasoline is like the most insanely destructive. Like it is so incredibly bad what leaded gasoline has done to all of us and for generations.
Well, and it's bad too because the only reason they put lead in the gasoline is because it kept the engines from knocking a little bit. Right?
Yeah.
It made the engines run a little quieter. There was no reason for it to be there other than that, is my understanding.
I think it also reduced wear. And so like things would last a little longer, but also at a cost of whatever.
Okay.
And so like Thomas Midgley Jr. is not, the Antichrist and is not the demon. But who might, like arguably maybe the demons were when you had the petrochemical companies that were doing the tests and they were saying, oh, lead is kind of everywhere. Do we think it's the leaded gasoline? And they knew. And they suppressed that for economic and other reasons. And so it's like, those are the terrible people where we need accountability. And so in the lens of AI, it's like the science and the amazing and the Promethean aspects of fire, of AI are like fire. And so it's like fire is a great servant, but a terrible master. And so AI is kind of the same thing. It's like we want to put AI in these roles where it's the master and it's managing the pleb, unwashed masses of workers. And it's like that is a terrible application of AI, and we should crush it as a society, and it would be bad. Nevertheless, the Promethean aspect of it is incredible. We are at a time when it's like electricity is matriculating through, to the unwashed masses, and AI is going to be as transformational for our society, I think. And so you can't not be excited because of that. But a lot of people don't see it that way because you've got, the bad people out here that are like, leaded gasoline is fine. Or like Edison, when faced with alternating current, like Tesla's alternating current, he's like, no, alternating current is terrible. He electrocuted an elephant. Makes Edison a terrible person for doing that. But that doesn't mean that electricity, because it can electrocute an elephant, is something we should shy away from.
Well, I mean, there's a bunch of people I really respect and are very smarter than me who are surprisingly pro on AI. Mike Masnick over at Tech Dirt has been talking about the stack that he uses to write with. And I can't remember who wrote this the other day, but I saw somebody do an explanation that kind of made me think about this differently, because I've been firmly on the, this is mostly bad technology, because the stuff that I'm exposed to is either trying to replace junior level jobs in like the games industry, or replacing concept artists and stuff like that. Things that there's value in having a human conversation with someone when you're producing the output, right? But Mike and a couple other people, somebody the other day said that it, like any, and this goes with your Promethean example, it makes things possible for novices that aren't possible otherwise, and most of those are negative outcomes, because it turns out you have to have the expertise to understand how to do something in order to make something that's good. Like there's a process there that has to be kind of followed, and you can't just assume that the machine's going to do it. But what they said is, if you've taken the time to build that expertise, then the technology accelerates the pace at which you can make good decisions. But it's not going to do your work for you. It's like anything else. It's a thing that is just going to make you more efficient and faster, and not in a stupid Valley Bro 10x way, but in a, hey, I can suddenly I can produce cleaner, better code, or I can write unit tests or whatever that are much more efficient than anything I've been able to do before.
I think a lot of people are using AI, especially the models from like Anthropic and OpenAI, incorrectly. And I've actually struggled a lot with Claude and OpenAI. Even I've got the crazy paid subscriptions, and it really is sycophantic, and it is almost useless because of that. So like a lot of the time when I'm using it to validate things or create things, like I was using it a little bit in working on the Simon side of things, because I've got all these notes that go back to like Threadripper 3000, and some of it is in Obsidian, and some of it is like, it's not even really, some of it's in a Git repository, but not everything's in a Git repository, and it's just this mess. And when you use the AI to, it's like, okay, we're going to help develop this, we're going to do this thing, it tells you that you're really good. And so like if you're somebody that's going to fall into like the Dunning-Kruger, like you don't know that you're at the peak of Dunning-Kruger, it is incredibly bad. But with a lot of coaching, I can use AI almost adversarially, where it's like, you have to tell me where the bad stuff is, and like you really have to like berate it constantly in order to get Claude or OpenAI or ChatGPT to really like do the devil's advocate, or to do the adversarial mode. But with the local models that I run and have done fine tuning, they are much better about that. And so I think that the tuning of the AI to try to not be bad for humanity actually makes it really stupid, and will actually make it lean into your bad ideas, when the way that I use it is like, this is probably terrible. You need to tell me why this is terrible. And I actually learn from it. And so like for your game dev example, it's like if I were doing game development, it's like, I have no idea how to do this. You're going to have to teach me, and like pretend that I'm a moron. And then like we go through it together, and I find that I'm able to fill in gaps in my knowledge, and also like have references to things, and it works really well for me in that capacity. But if I'm just like, stub this out, and then I go read it, it's like, this is terrible. Why would, like, no, I don't want this.
The place that it breaks down for game dev, and the reason it's a terrible thing for game dev, is that every studio ever has their own complete stack. It's like, it's imagine a world where every web app was built with its own complete bespoke pipeline from machine level code all the way up to the end, the top level scripting language. So there's no context, even if you're working. Like if you're working in an Unreal Engine game and you're building, like there's no reference. Like it doesn't have good reference for anything. So, are you running local models, or are you running mostly cloud stuff, Wendell?
I've found the local models to be more useful for the way that I'm using it than the cloud models. The cloud models tend to be really smart, although Anthropic, since like February, Anthropic has done something to make their cloud models dumber. But I've got, my main system is running 4 RTX Pro 6000s, and that is ample for having a model that is really good, and also with tool calling. Like the tool calling is the real magic, because it's like, here is my local directory of knowledge, and here's my local project, and here's my whatever, and it can do tool calling to do stuff with that, or it can do tool calling to get stuff from the internet. And I trust that a lot more. And in that sort of adversarial relationship where it's, this is how it needs to be, this is my plan, tell me all the things that are wrong with my plan, and then I can make my plan better, and then we can execute on my plan. So like plan mode kind of, and then execute on the thing. That has been fantastic, but that is more local than remote.
Well, if I can give you one ask for me personally, like I'm on the outside watching this stuff, seeing your enthusiasm and excitement, but a lot of it is still like the cloud-based stuff is pretty easy for somebody like me, but to get into your own local thing, like I feel like I haven't seen a lot of, hey, here's a noob's way to get into it. Like actually AMD put out a blog post of like, hey, here's how you set up OpenClaw.
Yeah, I spent a week figuring out how to set up OpenClaw, and then I was like, I need to do this on different hardware than my gaming machine.
Yeah, and I was just like, man, to do your own local stuff, if there was only somebody who could make a video for dummies like me, I feel like, maybe that's a...
I did a video on getting DeepSeek running when you have only 128 gigs of memory, not VRAM, but memory, at a reasonable speed. A long time ago, and it was like before all of this, and that still works. That's still a thing. But 128 gigs is much more unaffordable now than it was then.
Yeah, 128 gigs in this economy.
Yeah, dang, look at that, rolling in dough.
Cost? $10,000.
Yeah,
yeah. Now it's like 10 grand, but then it was like $400 of memory. So it's like,
wow. All right. Well, speaking of good times, the Linux gaming train is continuing to roll over there. I don't know where it's going. I don't know. It's going somewhere over there.
There's a teenage engineering cases over there.
Yeah, a little piece of plastic. But there was an article that I saw recently by one Phoronix, Mike over at Phoronix, right? His name's Mike?
Yeah.
Okay.
Michael
at Phoronix put up an article. I have a link down in the description if you want to follow along. The headline is Steam on Linux use skyrocketed in March. More than double the Mac OS gaming market share. The newest Steam hardware survey has come out, and it is pretty much jumped up all the way to 5.33%. That is,
I'll take it.
That is huge. Some of this, Michael kind of points out that it looks like they're recalculating some of the Steam China numbers or something like that. But either way, like this is good news for number one, Linux people. But then number two, people who are trying to learn to use, Linux for gaming scenarios. What do you make of this news, Wendell?
I'll take whatever I can get. Linux is getting easier all the time. I still don't think 2026 is going to be the year of the Linux desktop.
Yeah, because it was last year.
Yeah, that was 2025.
Yeah, 2025. That was it.
I am impressed with the level of accessibility. And there's a lot of like really unfun, annoying like computer plumbing stuff that nobody wants to do. And that's one of the places where, as like kind of a general pigeonhole category, nobody wants to do that work. And so nobody does it on open source unless there's a monetary incentive where it's like, oh yeah, we should totally do this. So like System 76 kind of has a monetary incentive to make Cosmic and Pop! OS really good. There is kind of a monetary incentive from like Canonical to make Ubuntu as good, and so that has knock-on effects for things that Ubuntu uses. There's a lot of just basic things. Like, for example, the drop-down menu for sleep time on your monitor is 1 minute increments from 1 to 15 minutes, and that's it in GNOME. And it's been that way since the dawn of time. And it's like, that's really annoying and stupid, and somebody could change that in about 20 minutes. But, that's just one of those annoying... It's like...
Well, but like, will they merge the pull request at GNOME? That's the other question. It's like, you might do the work. Probably 30 people have done that work over there. So like, no, we're good. With 15 minutes, this is a fine implementation. Don't need to touch it.
Yeah, exactly. And so... But like KDE, I've looked for little changes like that in KDE, and from like KDE like 5-ish a while ago to where they are now, they have made dozens of little changes like that. And sometimes people scream because it's like, why did you change that? It was perfectly fine before. It's like, no, this is actually incrementally slightly better, and I'm okay with that. Whereas, sometimes in Windows, it's like, oh, Microsoft changed this for the sake of change. Great.
See, this is the thing I like about the quick shell stuff, because the tiling window managers often use quick shell, and the quick shell seems to be insanely fast to iterate on. Because I'm looking at like what the Dank Shell and the Noctalia people have done in the last almost like 10 months now, I guess. Like Noctalia started last summer, and I think Dank Shell started a few months before that. And they've gone from incredibly rudimentary to like fully featured. You can do all the stuff that you expect to do in an OS almost with these kind of shells that live on top of the tiling window managers now.
Well, going back to gaming, like do you continue to see people having interest in moving over Linux? Like I feel like we see it a lot, but I don't ever want to feel like we're in a bubble. Like are you also seeing that in your community?
I absolutely, and again, there's a little bit of selection bias there because community's old and there's been a lot of people there, and it's like, oh, this is the community that's not completely unreasonable when you're switching from Windows to Linux and is somewhat tolerant and blah blah blah. And the number of people that are switching and have questions is very high. Very, very high. And it's good to see. It's also good to see that there are more people that are a little bit more reflective of those questions. Because in the past, I feel like that a lot of the time those questions would be met with hostility. Like, no, dummy, that's not how this works here. And it's like, well, they don't, that's not a really great attitude. You can't blame them for, that's just like, why would you do that? Don't, just, it's fine. They're learning. It's all good. And more people have that, they're learning, it's fine attitude, which is good to see.
I also saw that news pop up on one gamingonlinux.com. They actually have a Steam Linux data tracker, and towards the bottom, they actually break the percentage out based off of English only. So the numbers are different. If you look at English language only, the Steam hardware survey pumps up to 11.28%. So
it's a lot of Steam Decks, huh?
I don't know. So it's like worldwide it's sitting at 5.33 based off the latest hardware survey, but English only is 11.5 almost.
There is a really interesting aspect of this that is flying under everybody's radar, and that is the anti-cheat stuff. Mm-hmm. Microsoft is making the moves to make changes in Windows in fundamentally how anti-cheat is handled. And this is secretly a boon for Linux because Microsoft is not going to tolerate people injecting stuff into the kernel anymore because of CrowdStrike and other things. And so, like, architecturally, these options are going away.
Really?
Tim Sweeney with where he is on Epic, and, like, maybe he's going to have a backdoor, but I don't think so. I think that when Microsoft closes the loop there, overnight, the Linux support for games is gonna go up substantially because the anti-cheat will have to work the same way on Linux as it does on Windows.
Well, that's why we're seeing the secure boot requirement on newer games, right? Is because they're not allowed to run kernel level anti-cheat, so they have to have a known good, clean kernel in order to.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. So I mean, when is this coming?
It is being implemented now, so like over the next year, maybe two. It just depends on the accretion and like how quickly things break, because you want a machine that supports both. So like right now, not enough of a percentage of machines supports secure boot, for your example, but there's even things that are going to go beyond a little beyond secure boot. And so once you've got, it's like, okay, enough percentage of our players have secure boot or have some of these other mechanisms. Now we can turn off the kernel level driver. And eventually Microsoft just says, no, on this day, the kernel level driver is not going to work anymore.
I assumed that was because I assumed that was a Windows 12 thing. Honestly, I assumed that's a thing we're not going to see in this version of the OS.
Maybe,
So
but are we 12
yeah.
months away from Windows 12 or 18 months? It's not long, probably.
Yeah, but I assume it's a 5-year transition. It's a long transition just because of the inertia.
There's a second darker prong in this transition, which is ID requirements for computing. And with secure boot and with hardware identifiers, it's going to be very easy for Tim Sweeney to block Fortnite cheaters by using your hardware IDs. Like the serial number of the processor, that's an optional thing you can disable that's like exists in the BIOS. But you can't disable it. And so like with secure boot, it's like I need a secure unique user identifier for this machine, and you can't spoof it with all of the dots or all of the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed in your hardware. And so when you get banned for Fortnite, no matter how many times you reinstall your operating system, no matter how many times you reset your BIOS, those hardware IDs are banned. And you will not be able to play Fortnite online because that hardware will have been identified.
You'd have to buy a new system.
When I had the 13900K going bad and kept getting banned from Fortnite, eventually I got the "Hey, you've been hardware banned," because memory bits were flipping in the game, and I luckily I knew somebody who worked there, so I had to call them and be like, "Hey, can you forward me to the people? I'm not cheating. Something's bad with your game," and then the rest we know.
That's interesting. So yeah, I feel at least in our circles that I've seen that a lot of people who are more hesitant to move over to Linux or continue to dual boot is because of those cases where it needs the kernel level anti-cheat stuff. So that's interesting if that part went away. Yeah.
If you have to identify, like the dumbest way possible is your state ID. But if you identify with hardware IDs, then the need for kernel level anti-cheat kind of goes away. You just need some basic, because the people that want to cheat will find a way to cheat. You just have to make it economically unviable for them.
Well, so I want to play devil's avocado here for a second. We're excited as Linux people that it's hit 5% worldwide, but I could see a lot of people being like, "Oh wow, good for you, 5%. So glad for you." Like, there's plenty of people who are completely fine with hanging out on Windows. Do you think we're making a mountain out of a molehill?
I sort of see it in bigger terms, and that is, like, look at how Microsoft is sort of struggling just in, like, with laptops. Like, Apple's Neo laptop or whatever is a shockingly good experience at like $500 or $600 or whatever. And Microsoft literally doesn't have an answer to that. And 75% of the reason that Microsoft doesn't have an answer to that is the operating system, I think, because the hardware certainly exists, like x86 hardware. Like, now that you have experienced Linux on your, it's like, oh, this feels like a whole new machine. Probably, I don't know. It's fast and snappy. It's responsive. It generally, wakes and sleeps as it is supposed to. Can you imagine if there was somebody pouring commercial support into testing and validating sleep and wake? On my HP G1A, the Strix Halo laptop, love that thing. But if I want to run the bleeding edge kernel, it's like I might sacrifice sleep and wake, or I've got my webcam is still a little bit fiddly with the drivers, and so like I have to put in work or go to my own forum and read through the how-tos to figure it out and get that working. And that wouldn't be there if it wasn't, for those things. But the hardware can go toe to toe with what Apple is doing with the Neo IMHO, but the software struggles a little bit. And the reason the software struggles is because internally, culturally, you have this key performance indicator driven society, apparently, because that's why we see the changes in the operating system. And then we're only just now starting to see little hints of sanity, like the Windows Store. It's like maybe our idea for what the Windows Store should be was wrong, and we should change it back into being Windows applications. And it's like, I could have told you that on day one before this was even made public. I'm not special.
We literally asked them that. I went to the rollout for the Windows 8 launch when they were like, "Hey, guys, this is incredible. We realize it's like 2011, okay, and that the App Store has been around now for 4 years, whatever it was. But this is going to blow. We're going to have an App Store for Windows. And also, we're going to build a completely new API infrastructure for those apps that no one's ever used before. And it's going to be incredibly limited compared to Win32 and Win64. And you're going to have a really hard time getting people to write apps for it. But we think this is going to be revolutionary on the same scale as the Apple App Store and the Google Play Store." And people laughed. Like, people in the audience laughed when they were like, "Hey, we have a whole new app infrastructure for this. It's called Metro."
How do you have an internal corporate culture that is that disconnected for that long, and you don't have significantly negative business outcomes? It's like, that's the level of inertia that we're dealing with from Microsoft. MONOPOLY is how that happens.
Even
just WinGet. I think WinGet is a better example. WinGet is amazing, but there are internal factions at Microsoft that want to undermine WinGet at every opportunity because there's no place to create a forced interaction where somebody's dashboard, like a line goes up on the dashboard because it's like, oh, we got user interaction. Oh, somebody used Bing because they were trying to find software. Oh, somebody didn't, And so it's like, but WinGet is like what the future has to be. And yet there are people in Microsoft that are undermining that because the line is not going up on their dashboard.
Why? But also WinGet has real problems in terms of the stuff that shows up in your like even with that, which is a pretty good Microsoft product. You still type Discord, and there's 6 different apps that are obviously spam or phishing attempts named Discord in there, in addition to the one that you want. That's usually like the 4th entry. It's anyway.
I mean, same could be said for Linux.
No,
right? Depending on certain package managers, anybody can put anything in there.
Yeah, but if I type Paru and OBS, the thing that's number 1 is OBS-Studio, right?
But that's Paru.
Because they picked the most popular one.
But that's Paru.
popularity is all that matters, Adam. That's I learned that in middle school.
Popularity, but also like reporting, and like there is a user community aspect of it, but all of the opportunity for user and community has been sabotaged in this. And so, but it's kind of hilarious because there's a psychological aspect of this, that in order for these initiatives from Microsoft to succeed, it depends on a social and sharing. Is like, oh, I had a good experience with Copilot, I should share that. No, said no one ever.
Yeah.
But it's designed like as if that's a thing, and it's not a thing.
Wendell, Copilot is an entertainment product. You're not supposed to do things that aren't entertainment with it. It's not to be taken seriously, clearly.
But if we make Copilot just frustrating enough that you won't not use it, the number of times you interact with Copilot, that line goes up on a dashboard, and then we can report, hey, Copilot interactions have gone up, and it's like, that's a little bit like the monkey's paw curls. I don't know.
Look, I assume that the person who was like, you know what, I have an idea. I have a 10-slide deck about how we can get Bing traffic to multiply by a factor of 100, and it was the person who realized that they should make every third time you type something into the start menu just search Bing instead. and like that person's in charge of like 3 divisions at Microsoft now. They have to be, yeah.
Back to Linux gaming share.
Yeah, wrangle that back in
there. The other thing, no. The other thing I'm wondering is that if we're getting all this momentum on the Linux side, where it seems like genuine momentum, I guess I'm going to ask you, does this seem like genuine momentum?
It does. Every indicator that I'm getting from my community is there is genuine momentum for people to earnestly give Linux a chance and also work through the rough areas of Linux. And I would say probably 8 out of 10, like for the people that have posted on the forum over the last year and a half, 2 years, I'd say probably 8 out of 10, if they don't, they stick with Linux, or they're running Linux 75% of the time or more if they're dual booting.
Okay.
We've had a lot of people that they had something that just couldn't come over to Linux from Windows, and several of them have taken up the whole virtual machine thing. It's like, I'm going to run Windows stuff. Winboat has matured tremendously. But you can also just run a full-fat Windows virtual machine. And now, and this is a good lead-in for whenever we talk about B60, B70, Arc is a mainstream GPU that supports single-root I/O virtualization. So you can physically share your GPU now with full GPU acceleration between multiple operating systems at the same time. So that's kind of nice.
Wow.
Hey, Adam, you know what you need?
I know, right? Yeah, I'm going to call up my Intel people right now. But before we get into that, though, so assuming this is genuine momentum, do you think this could actually have a knock-on effect where Microsoft wakes up and actually ends up making Windows better, so that all of this could actually become a good thing for Windows?
They had a mini wake-up call. It's been almost a year ago now with Zen 5, because when Zen 5 from AMD launched, the gaming numbers were better generally, depending on the game, but were generally better on Linux than Windows, which doesn't make any sense because there's significant overhead with Proton and like running a Windows game under Linux. How is a Windows game running under Linux faster than Windows natively? Something has gone wrong. Well, it turned out a lot of things had actually gone wrong. There were some fixes in the Linux kernel. There were some fixes in the operating system. There were some problems with like the scheduler and interrupt handling. And this wasn't anything to do with AMD or the differences in the Zen 5 architecture. There were regressions on Intel CPUs as well. And in the time since then, it's like, oh, maybe we should fix that. Microsoft has actually put a lot of work into making the operating system run better, updating drivers. They've done some really baffling things, like Windows Server 2025 has a much better NVMe driver, and somebody published a registry hack to make that NVMe driver, because it's there in Windows, like Windows Desktop, Windows Server is just some registry tweaks, it's all the same. And so somebody published a registry hack to use the server NVMe pathway, and that was like 3 to 8% faster.
Wow.
Especially for low queue depth things. That's like for modern PCIe Gen 5 for low queue depth, like there's some stuff you can do differently. The driver overhead was significant, and Microsoft turned off the registry entry that lets you do that. And
they solved the problem.
Yeah, it's like mysterious reasons. And it's like, oh, some people that would do this with like a PCIe Gen 3 SSD, it might not work. And it's like, that sounds like laziness. Like, if you know that it's not going to work in PCIe Gen 3 mode, like put extra checks in there. Don't make everybody with modern hardware suffer, as you were doing when the when the gaming performance stuff was terrible, maybe like fix it correctly.
Yeah, that is weird. But once again, that makes me wonder if this momentum will actually have the effect where Microsoft kind of wakes up and makes Windows better, and so then the momentum would slow down. Or do you think we would actually get to a spot where there's like we have two viable players in OSs? What's the highest do you think we could ever see Linux adoption on the Steam hardware survey?
I think there might be a flashpoint where Linux usage grows a point or two or three every month. And so like within a couple of years, we may see Linux usage in 35, 40, 50% range. Everybody said that was impossible with server CPUs, but then AMD sort of turned it around and there was a concerted effort and blah, blah, blah. What I don't know is if it's going to be a community effort that does that for Linux, or if, some rich person somewhere decides like, no, this is going to be the year of the Linux desktop, and they start, putting investment into it, or some charismatic leader emerges and they're able to Pied Piper cash to pay the developers to do all the unfun things to bring it all together.
Well,
I don't know.
I think that there's a lot of pressure right now. I think with the memory crisis, the decreased RAM consumption on the Linux and Mac OS side is a big advantage for them. I think Microsoft coming out and saying, "Hey, we realize that we have Windows problems and we have to fix them," with no real time. Like I'm excited. I'm interested to see what comes from that. I'm interested to see what if there is any output from that. Hey, the mea culpa turns into actual measurable improvement. But I think that the RAM pricing and the kind of hardware price increasing pushes people toward things like handhelds, and those are more likely to be running Linux. I also wonder if companies like Lenovo and Asus that are making kind of mid-range, they're making both handhelds that are Linux based and desktops like Linux laptops, gaming laptops, start looking at shifting to Linux as a way to shave a few bucks off of the MSRP, so they can be more competitive if the SteamOS infrastructure stays good.
There's the perfect example. I'm trying to remember it. I'm sorry for the keyboard noise. I was going to try to search for it. I think it's from Lenovo. The chat probably knows. Does the chat know the story about the Lenovo Windows handheld? That there's now an unofficial SteamOS.
Yeah, because they're shipping. They ship a SteamOS build for one of the Legion Go's, right?
For the Legion Go OS had official support. Yeah.
So the interesting thing that happened there is that there's no video driver update. Now the video driver on the Windows side for that handheld is far out of date. And for AMD's part, they're like, no, the OEM is responsible for the video driver for this, not us, because we don't know about the particulars of the implementation. And so the people that run, I believe, the people that are running Windows on that handheld are stranded, basically. But the people that are using SteamOS, not a problem, because Linux and support and we'll DIY it and get it done. And there has been, some Herculean efforts by just randos in the community, but the plumbing is there to be able to do that on the Linux side of things. And so that handheld is now a much better experience on Linux than Windows, because it's effectively been abandoned by Windows because it's not in Lenovo or whoever's commercial interest to continue updating or maintaining that handheld, because there wasn't enough people that bought it, or the Windows experience was so terrible that yeah. So, but on Linux, it's like, it's totally fine. This is not it hasn't happened in the desktop, but you have to also consider literally everywhere else Linux has gone, it has completely taken over the universe. And it was, in all scenarios, it was like the flashpoint of insanity. It's like something happened, and then it's like, boom, Linux was everywhere. For networking equipment, for servers, a lot of the time it lined up with refresh cycles. It's like, oh, we're going to refresh our file servers. Oops, all of a sudden our file servers are no longer Windows or whatever. They're all Linux based.
Look, that Novell server had to go, Wendell. I don't care what you say.
Yeah, and it's like the upgrade path is like this or that. I think the mea culpa from Microsoft here is not even anything to do with Linux. I think that there were corporations that were looking at this Windows 10 end of life, and so many corporations were like, we could just go Mac. And that's not because Mac is easy to use. Mac does not have a fabulous reputation in the corporate scenarios for management. There are enough third-party, not Apple companies now for managing your Apple devices and managing the security and the lockdown and that kind of thing, that if we're going to have to go through some sort of accretion process, whether that's Windows 11 or Mac, we might as well just go Mac instead of Windows 11 because it's not an easy upgrade from 10 to 11, or Microsoft has gone out of their way to make it difficult for us to use our Windows fleet the way that we want to use it. So why don't we just switch platforms if we have to go through headache? And so the same kind of Linux accretion pushed people to Apple because Linux wasn't ready yet, or Linux mobile devices weren't really ready yet.
Okay. Real quick, I don't want to forget this before we move on, but we got some super chats I want to get to. $2 from JW Dixon said, "Attention, banana. You may now carry on."
Banana.
Banana. Is that from something?
No.
Am I missing something? No. All right.
Sometimes I would use the test word banana. It's like, this is bananas.
This is bananas. All right.
A-N-A-N-A-S.
Yeah. Copyright. Skeet Sayer gave us $5 Canadian. Thank you so much. Said, Linux distros announcing no ID check is a great boon for them. Okay, yeah, we talked about that. Skeet Sayer gave us another $5 super chat. Said, one of the problems with AI implementation is how every single person's electricity is more expensive thanks to it. Good point. Good point. Yeah. Eats that stuff up. Okay, so before we move over to the B70 testing, I guess my last question for you, Wendell, is that a lot of people are doing this for gaming scenarios, right? Like it makes easier sense if you have a PC and it's just a gaming device. You might see the Steam Deck or use a Steam Deck and be like, oh, hey, it's kind of a utility device that just does gaming. I could probably do that on the desktop too. Well, why not try it? I'm not saying that's the impetus, but I can see people like that. What about people who are more on the workstation side of things? Like creative professionals usually have like chosen Mac OS as kind of like the de facto thing. If you're into Adobe and content creation stuff, Mac kind of rules there. If you're doing a lot of AI workloads, I guess maybe Linux is probably the place to go anyway. Like, do you see this also seeping in different sectors other than just gaming?
Yeah, it turns out in workstation, Linux is already the adoption curve there is very high. I think it was Gartner actually, one of their reports. I don't think it's public, but the report from last year, the people that are buying 2-socket workstations, there's 2 CPU sockets. I think 70% of those workstations, Linux. The closer you get to a normal desktop, the more Windows picks up again. AI, for AI and AI tasks, certainly Linux is taking over the universe. AMD is really leaning into Windows support for their client for like RDNA, which is an interesting strategy. But there is also good support on the Linux side for what AMD is doing. For Linux, the B70 had better Linux day one support than Windows. The Windows, in fact, on launch day, the day after launch day, there were no installable Windows drivers. It was just Linux. And then the next day it was like, oh yeah, oops, you got your GPU and here's some Windows drivers. But I didn't even have early access to Windows drivers. And so Linux in workstation context is already kind of insane. I was helping out a really huge YouTube channel, not this past weekend, but the weekend before that. And they are almost entirely switching, I think they are entirely switching from Adobe to DaVinci Resolve. And so like DaVinci Resolve is a first-class experience on Linux. And Threadripper workstations for creative workloads are unmatched in value per dollar. And DaVinci, of course, works great on Linux, and a lot of other higher-end, like Blender and things like that, applications work fantastically well on Threadripper. And that is really, like, Threadripper is like the first-class citizen for that. On the Apple side, the Apple Silicon integration is so good when you're just doing, if you're just doing relatively pedestrian, like 4K video editing, Apple is a fantastic experience there because of the memory bandwidth and because of the tight integration on the CPU side and the CPU GPU stuff, and like the whole hardware software plumbing there has been really, really super optimized. And it's like I've been at my contacts at both AMD and Intel, I've been like, hey, you guys have the gaming and the graphics hardware in your GPUs. Like, why don't you lean into really optimizing the creative workflow because, Mac is sort of taking over the universe for the lower end of the workstation stuff because the experience is so much better just using it. So it's really interesting where it's like you get Mac on this end and like Threadripper and a dual processor workstation. The dual processors, both Xeon and Epic. You have this crazy Linux penetration here, and then Mac OS here, and Windows is just kind of getting squeezed out from both ends.
Wendell, so like 15 years ago when I started Tested, we were using like dual CPU, dual socket workstations to do video work. And then 4 years after that, you could buy a MacBook or a $1,000 laptop that would basically do that same workflow because we started accelerating the video encodes with GPU and stuff like that. So I'm kind of curious, what are typical workstation and like in the game space, most of the people doing the work are using fairly high-end gaming PCs to do like Unreal Engine work, even in like a big AAA first-person shooter type situation, with the exception of typically there's some kind of workstation class computers that are doing like big number crunching, like making light maps and stuff like that. But I'm curious what you see people using workstation class machines for these days.
Most of the stuff that I see that like the dual CPU workstations, I see a fair bit for AI, and it is for AI that doesn't run super well on GPUs, or where you need such an absurd memory footprint that like 1.5, 2 terabytes of memory makes sense, and we don't want to spend the money to get 2 terabytes of VRAM. We're going to get our algorithm working correctly on CPUs, and we're fine with 1.5 or 2.5 terabytes on CPU. So there's a lot of AI applications. On scientific applications, there's been a lot of projects that have come through the forum where people have bought, like a dual CPU system has made sense because they're doing things like computational fluid dynamics or other like scientific simulation. And a lot of the time those systems will have like 2 or 4 GPUs and then 2 really powerful CPUs, and it is a best bang for the buck play where it's like we're doing the things that run fast on GPU, but then we're also doing everything else on CPU, and the system, you have to, there's some considerations there, but like you don't want necessarily a 256 core CPU. Like a fast clock speed 32 or 64 core CPU might make more sense for the application, but it's very, very application specific, and those tend to be more academic or like hard science users. And then on the creative side, there's a software development side too, which is integration testing and unit testing. And so a lot of the time I will see like, okay, here's our work group of 12 developers, and they have, like Macs or they have whatever. But the server is doing constant like linting and building and testing and analyzing the code that the devs have checked in, and doing as much testing as it can for automated testing to make sure that like the code is good. So that thing just sort of runs independently.
And that's running on like a Jenkins server or something like that?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, and there might be 1 GPU in there or 2, but it's really just doing the builds and doing the artifacts, and there might be other machines elsewhere that will pick those up and go use them. So like I know one game server that I helped out with is like the server was doing all of the stuff and all of the linting and all of the building, but none of the running. The running was happening elsewhere, and there was 128 cores in that machine across 2 sockets, and I was surprised. It was a surprisingly busy server for a relatively small team of developers that were just doing the daily thing.
Yeah.
Nice.
Testing multiplayer server also was one of the things that it tested automatically. And then on the creative side, I see the dual CPU servers used for job coordination. Sometimes you get GPU accelerated things like applying a LUT or making proxies, but if you have like a storage server that's trying to help a work group, it's like we might get the raw footage from like 4K at 60 FPS, and then the system will need to produce proxies automatically, and there might be 1 GPU in the server to do that, but then you want the system to be really responsive, and so they like having dual processor servers there. But that's going away too. It's like a lot of the time it's like we'll just use a Threadripper workstation for that instead of like a dual Xeon server or a dual Epic server, and that works perfectly fine.
Real quick, we should move on, but I do have a question on the company that you said is moving. You helped equip with new systems, and they're moving over to DaVinci. Which distro are they using for their endpoints?
I didn't think to ask. They're in the process, so I think it's just Ubuntu.
Oh. Interesting. Okay.
So-
All right. Interesting. You know what else is interesting is this super chat that we got in. I need to address from one Dilla Joints 433 gave us $9.99. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Said, just want to say thank you to the full nerd. Thank you. You guys have kept me and my newborn company during these sleepless nights. Oh man, yeah, that's fun. And love you too, Wendell. So there you go.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
Yeah. Congratulations. I'm glad we're there to help you in the middle of the sleepless nights.
As much, but I watched It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia during the sleepless nights, so that was
really?
probably scarred my child.
Yeah, I was like, that sounds stressful.
I have some longer form videos that will help you sleep.
There you go. I mean, Wendell, I still think you should have like an ASMR channel where you just help
Today
put me
we're
to
gonna
sleep.
today we're going to explain System D.
Yeah, love it.
We're
Love
going to
it.
read the System D source code.
Yeah,
Perfect.
first
I'll subscribe to
yeah,
it.
exactly.
All right, we're gonna move over now. You've already kind of talked a little bit about it, but the Intel Arc B70 testing.
Should we take a quick break first?
Oh yeah, actually, we should take a quick ad break. You know, we do this now, Wendell. Now we do these ad breaks. Hold on to the seat of your pants because we'll be right back.
We all need our pennies.
And like that, we're back. Look at
Wow.
that break. That was such a good break. I feel rested.
Yeah.
Ready now.
I can't believe the advertisement we just heard. It was incredible. Really, truly life changing. You should subscribe
I don't know. Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, well, okay.
Anyway, Wendell, I saw in my feed that you didn't only just have one Intel Arc B70 for testing. You unboxed 4 of them.
What?
Yeah,
Yes.
like dang.
128 gigs of VRAM. Woo!
Yeah. You did some testing over on Level1Techs. You did some follow-up coverage over on the forums, which you actually did a little gaming too. I want to get to that, but yeah. So I want to dive deeper into this Pro series. A lot of people are kind of looking towards this as understanding Intel's intentions in the discrete GPU space. How does Intel message the Pro series?
The Pro series, it's really interesting. It is aggressively priced. 32 gigs of VRAM for under $1,000 is insanely aggressive. They're not an absurd wattage, but they are made for Pro usage and also SRIOV, which the whole Arc family from the little B50, B60, B70 support SRIOV. So it's Linux first driver tree. They're doing everything Linux first, as far as I can tell, in a way that's meaningful. They've also got a pretty solid, the XE graphics and all that kind of stuff. They've also got a pretty solid set of encoders and decoders. So for like creative workloads, it's there. But again, it's like lean more into the creative stuff if you're going to do the creative stuff. But it's about local AI and being able to run larger models and having more VRAM, more stuff that fits in VRAM. And so Pro in the sense that you're running professional software, maybe CAD software, maybe some GPU offload CFD if the CFD would. Not all CFD is appropriate for GPU, but it helps with some things. Or scientific compute, things like that. 32 gigs of VRAM.
So how does this compare to AMD and NVIDIA's stack for these kind of workstation kind of applications?
Direct head-to-head with AMD is the R9700. Now, the R9700 software story, I think, has a little bit more momentum and is a little more well put together. But AMD is plagued by senseless bugs. That's just really annoying.
Even on the Linux side.
Yeah, even on the Linux side. And actually, on the gaming, like AMD's got, in my opinion, AMD has gotten their stuff together on the Windows driver gaming side of things more than they ever have, and it's fantastic. And arguably, like the least bugs they've ever had in their history of any time. But on the AI side, on Linux, there's just like a lot of the math stuff is fine, but then there's just like a catastrophic bug somewhere else, and it's just like, guys, come on, you got to get it together. Intel, for their part, it's like they know they can't cover the universe of everything. So on the Intel side, they have something that they call LLM Scaler. And LLM Scaler is an implementation of VLLM, and the LLM Scaler GitHub page has like the list of models they support. And LLM Scaler tends to work really well with all the models that are listed there, and the models that are built like the models there, like a fine-tuned quants, that kind of thing of that. But when you get outside that, not so much. It's like, I want to go run this arbitrary thing, and it's like, I don't know. It's like, can I run SG Lang with this? And it's like, you want to stick to LLM scaler. But then if you do stick to LLM scaler, you'll have a really good experience.
So how does it compare to the NVIDIA stack?
The NVIDIA, the RTX 4000 is probably the most direct answer, but it's like $1,700, so it's almost twice as expensive, and that one only has 24 gigs of VRAM, not 32.
Huh.
The R9700 from AMD has 32 gigs, and the B70 Pro has 32 gigs. Like, it's really nice having 32 gigs of VRAM. It's also really nice that those cards don't use an absurd amount of power. Now, the RTX 4000 is only a 145 watt card, if I recall correctly. So that is like really low power. But the B70 is a little bit faster for most things, both inferencing and token generation, which again is weird because the RTX 4000 actually has slightly higher memory bandwidth. It's close to 700 gigabytes per second, whereas the B70 is closer to 600 gigabytes per second. But the B70 manages to pull out a win in most practical uses for AI. Depends a little bit on the model and depends a little bit on like the specific software version. The troubling thing with the Intel thing is that they depend on VLLM, and you have to use LLM scaler, which is running a little behind where VLLM is. And they were 3 months behind when the B60 launched. But with the B70 launching, they're not 3 months behind, but that has also been a Herculean amount of work. And they've got to keep up the momentum. So like, if Intel is able to keep up the momentum on keeping up with VLLM over the next year, I'll feel a lot better about the B70.
And who is this marketed for? Are these going in server racks? Are these going on people's workstations? Like who?
Right now, workstations. I don't think that anybody is putting B70s in rack mount PCs. Maybe it's like a specialty thing, but not at scale. But if you want 128 gigs of VRAM in a desktop Threadripper or Xeon machine, there is not a cheaper way to do it. I mean, you can spend $4,000 upgrading an existing workstation. Even if you've got an older workstation, like you've got an old Cascade Lake workstation, as long as you can give each card at least 8 lanes of PCIe, you can get a reasonable build around that. Now, it'll benefit you for PCIe Gen 5 at 16 lanes. So, we're talking Threadripper 9000 series is your lowest cost option. But you could do that with a 4-channel memory, four memory channel Threadripper platform, and get all 4 GPUs connected with Gen 5, and that would be a pretty killer little AI box with 128 gigs of actual VRAM. None of this LPDDR5 stuff. It's really 600 gigabytes per second per card.
Yeah, I was going to ask how this compares to something like the Strix Halo. I mean, I'm sure it's a step down because those are way more smaller kind of setups. But like how far off, or how much more advanced is a B70 than a Strix Halo? Or a DJX Spark, whatever those really mini ones.
Yeah, well, both of those are LPDDR5, so those are 200 gigabytes per second, give or take 200 to 273, somewhere through there. So the memory speed is about half, but also you need 4 cards to match 128 gigs to 128 gigs. So it's kind of like.
So it's $4,000 for the cards plus the rest of the computer. Versus $4,000 for the Spark, assuming that's what they're actually selling for. Still, I don't know that that's actually the price these days.
Yeah, I think they're like $4,700 now.
What, Wendell? Is there an impact for running it on multiple cards and for the cards having to cross across the PCI Express bus?
Yes, it's definitely not ideal. Your PCIe bus is only 64 gigabytes per second, but having the layers, like you have one set of layers running on one GPU, another set of layers running on another GPU, another set of layers running on other GPUs. It's not as detrimental as you would expect, but it's also not like super amazing.
So it's not like trying to run games across multiple GPUs, which has been notoriously janky over the years, because the latency is less important, or is it more complicated than that?
The latency doesn't matter on an AI because you're usually working, like a fast model running with these would be running around 100 tokens per second. But you could run a 32 billion parameter model in BF16, 16-bit. That runs great, and that'll also give you really, really super deep context. And so that is really great for local AI. Like if you want to do coding tasks or tasks that need a lot of context, having more VRAM definitely helps. NVIDIA has this Nemotron model that is great. And ironically, you can get it running on both Intel and AMD hardware, but not like NVIDIA has this magical 4-bit format, and I really hate to describe it as magical, but NVIDIA really has come up with something clever for their 4-bit format, and that runs great on Spark. And the 120 billion parameter model will run in 60 gigabytes of memory, which means that you got your other 60 gigabytes of memory for context, and that is fantastic. 4-bit in a true apples to apples comparison with something like that on AMD or Intel is problematic for a lot of reasons. But at 8-bit, the Intel stuff works really well. So like NVIDIA is doing their own models now, which sort of help funnel you into the NVIDIA ecosystem, which is kind of wild. But for other things like Qwen, the models are so good that you can run Qwen on this kind of a stack and have something that's purely local for like document analysis or retrieval augmented generation or something like that. And the price of admission for a lot of companies, because it is all local, is worth it. But hilariously, the reason that it's worth it is because you have models as good as Qwen that will run on the Intel hardware without any headache at all. Like it's just push button basically. Yeah. You can run a Docker Compose and it runs, and it works really well because of that LLM scaler. So like if you lean on the LLM scaler and you're using one of the good models and blah blah blah, then you're good to go.
So remind me, the B60 that was announced at Computex, right, last year?
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, last year.
Yeah, so I mean, why is it taking so long to get this B70 out? Do you know?
I would suggest software, but the reality is probably a little bit software and a little bit hardware.
Okay, and how was B60 adoption? Like,
there were a lot of people on the forum that picked up a B60, and that is a 24 gig version, so and a slightly lower wattage. But it is really well supported. Like B50, B60, B70 are really well supported on VLLM. So there are a lot of people on the forum that are picking up the two models of GPU.
Okay. Do you think this B70 equation is going to kind of turn the ship for Intel on these workstation loads, or do you think this is just like hey, we have another option out there, but it doesn't really change too much?
I don't know. It's hard to say. I think that if people pick up the B70 and they have a pretty good experience, like picking up two for like $2,000 and having 64 gigs of VRAM. If you're the person that has to build this kind of a machine for a small work group, the people using the work group don't care. They don't know. They're just using the web interface, or they're using the thing to generate the images or do the work or whatever it is. And so if you're part of a team that's doing the experimentation, it's perfectly viable. I mean, you're saving, upwards of 50% of the, dollars per token for those specific models in that specific context. And so I think that that people that are cost conscious would be wise to pick those up. I mean, you can't get 32 gigs of VRAM any other way, any less expensive. And I think that's to an extent AMD's leaning on that as well. It's like, look, we've got a reasonable piece of hardware here for doing these specific things, and it will work great for that. And for the users that are using it, they don't know if they're running on AMD or Intel or NVIDIA hardware for what you're doing. But you have to be confident enough and smart enough in what you're doing to be like, oh yeah, I'm sure that this will work. And because this is the Wild West and everything is so new, not everybody has that same confidence.
Okay.
Nobody ever got fired for buying NVIDIA, but at the same time, it's like you get a lot more bang for your buck over here if it fits into these use cases.
Got it. Okay. Then I want to move over to conjecture time, because there's a lot of people asking. This means there's going to be a big Battlemage on the gaming side, right? Like, could this theoretically come out in a different configuration and be the true successor to the A770?
Yeah, I think that maybe that the successor to the A770 was going to come first, and then they looked at the cost benefit and they just said, it's so hard to sell. Like we're just going to go for the 32 gig version.
What?
Maybe they'll do a 16 gig version later, but I don't know.
What's the perf like on this for games? Did you test games at all?
He did actually. Yeah.
I can't remember. I have to go look at it. I remember it was much better than the B60.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I mean, B60 was like I think Tap said. B60 was closer to the shipping Battlemage, right?
Yes.
So yeah, so 1080 class performance, I think, was the goal.
No, I think it was a little better than that. Yeah, let me find the. So you published the testing over on your forums. Do you plan on doing a video follow up showing your gaming?
Yeah, there's been one more driver update, and the newer driver is maybe about 10% better in some games. But we got a little bit of a performance uplift on the B60 and the B50 as well. So it's like Intel's doing some work on the Windows side. But yeah, like Cyberpunk 2077 Ultra 1080p is like 126 FPS. That's pretty good.
1080p Ultra.
That's
okay,
no
yeah.
ray trace. That's the non-path trace. Just raster farm to table pixels.
Yep.
Yeah.
No
and
upscaling
Ultra
anything.
1440p is 83. No upscaling. No. So it's pretty good. Shadow of the Tomb Raider is over 200 FPS.
Oh yeah.
I mean, look at that. Yeah.
The game everybody's just dying to play.
Yeah. And that is with a configuration. So you tested that on Windows 11 for the gaming stuff. Did you try it in Linux or is it not?
Linux is a little bit of a mixed bag. Cyberpunk was actually, it's not listed here, but Cyberpunk was slightly faster than Windows. That may have been a testing artifact, but 1080p Ultra on Cyberpunk 2077 in Linux was more like 130, 132, something like that. Linux definitely had more up-to-date, like the firmware for the thing updated like 2 days before the cards actually launched on the Linux side. So like through the firmware update manager and that kind of thing.
Okay.
So it's like, oh, that's cutting it a little close.
I love a firmware update on a video card, though. That's my favorite.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think we should clarify real quick. Intel is not positioning this as a marketing card or as a gaming card.
It is 100% a marketing card. They're marketing the hell out of it.
Yeah, but they're not positioning this as gaming. So you ran some gaming tests just for fun, just to see, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And yeah, I would be curious to see where that kind of falls in the stack against like the B580.
It's a kind of remarkably low power consumption card because it's only like 230 watt TDP or something, right?
Right, yeah. The TDP can actually vary from, I think it was like 170 to 240, depending on the partner and the configuration and what you want to run. And on Linux, capping the cards to 200 watts for inferencing type jobs it was almost no impact on prompt processing or token generation.
What do they spin fans up like my 5090 does if I try to run OpenClaw on it?
It does have the blower style fans, and you will hear them.
Okay.
Yeah.
More interestingly, though, is the coil whine. Like you can, depending on what you're running, they make they're musical, and so it's like, okay, I'm running this kind of. It's like, no. I can tell by the sound it's Quen, or I can tell by the sound that this is.
I don't want that.
Llama. But it with like I've got it in a fractal defined 7 with the side on. You hear fan noise, but with the side off and your head next to the cards, it's like, I hear, sing me the song to my people.
Wendell, what we need to do now is figure out how to turn that into an instrument. It's got to be like those Tesla coil guys that play heavy metal with the Tesla coils, where you figure out exactly what notes to generate with which.
Start a band.
Yeah.
And now for my ensemble in the Hall of the Mountain King on B70s.
It's the only good AI music is AI generated music, is what I'll say.
So, do you believe that they will end up making a consumer version of this, or do you think the market is just so crappy that they're like, eh?
I doubt seriously that they would make a consumer version of this. Maybe, but I doubt seriously they would make just because it's so expensive to buy VRAM and it's so expensive for components and everything else, and they already have to be the margins have to be really not great at $949 for a B70, but for this level of performance for $949, with the other kvetching, it's really good. It is shockingly good.
Okay.
The only thing that I'm slightly worried about is depending on LLM scaler and Intel keeping up the momentum with LLM scaler.
Huh.
But other than that, this is phenomenal performance for the price point.
Can you mix and match these with other GPUs too in a system? Like, could you have a 5090 on? No, it's all you want to do all of these or all the other.
You might be able to roll something special or like do agentic AI kind of thing where you got like one little model running on one GPU and another little model running on the other GPU, and they like work together to do a job, like maybe something like that. But in terms of like just use what I got,
okay, it doesn't work that way.
Okay. Then more conjecture.
Oh,
what do you think this means for a possible Celestial? a desktop, a discrete Celestial card.
I would think that in order for them to do that, they would have to get. So, like, if we scale the performance, if we look at what we get here for 200 watts, and we triple it, and then we say that's going to be a 600 watt card, that's not enough.
Not enough in terms of performance compared to the competition, or
like a 5090 or an RTX 6000.
okay.
Like, it's just you would need to be like 4 or 5x performance in like a 500 watt power envelope, and I don't know how you would get there.
So meaning you don't seem very confident that Celestial is going to happen.
I would be surprised. I mean, maybe, but I would be surprised.
A discrete Celestial, specifically.
There was something. Remember from the Intel event though, there was something weird going on with like the whole XE2, XE2.5, XE3.
Yeah.
And so like is you know, and so like if there's new silicon that unlocks, you know, whatever, then it'd be great.
That's why I'm trying to pick my words carefully. A discrete Celestial card, some sort of successor to the B series, the C series for discrete GPUs.
You know, it's interesting though on the NVIDIA side, most people don't realize how much of a mess Blackwell was when it launched, because like the NVFP4 stuff when it launched was kind of crappy, and Blackwell in Spark is similar to Blackwell in RTX 6000 and 5090, but that is different than Blackwell in like the B200, and that's different than Blackwell in like the Thor, the Spark for robotics, basically, that came out before the Spark, and like architecturally it's different, and so like NVFP4 enablement wasn't really fully there until a couple of weeks ago, and so NVIDIA, well, like a month ago now, and so NVIDIA came out with this blog post that was like, look, we made Thor 3 times faster. How did we do that? And it's like, well, we finally turned on in software the stuff that was there in hardware all along. The software wasn't really ready yet. And so like Celestial, if there is something like that for Celestial, where it's like, boom, we got this 4-bit format, and the 4-bit format is going to lead to a doubling of speed because it's 4-bit, then that'll be great. But my experience on Battlemage so far has been that there's not really a huge difference between the 4-bit and the 8-bit operation. And so, like, you're not getting any benefit from running in 4-bit except reduced memory footprint, not execution speed. Whereas on NVIDIA, it's like you're getting the benefit of double execution speed almost, and half memory utilization almost. And that really is the promised land of, like, quote-unquote high-fidelity 4-bit. I mean, can you really have high fidelity in 4-bit? But yeah, it's actually surprisingly good. But right now, where B70 is shining is like in the 8 and 16-bit, especially the 16-bit models, especially when you got 4 GPUs. And so, like, if Celestial is going to enable some of those pathways in silicon, then yeah, it's going to be amazing. But there's a lot of missing pieces there that I don't see in what has been published in the GitHub repository and some of the hardware enablement. Like, there's probably some hardware paths that are not enabled on the B70 that I hope they're able to turn on and get running well.
Interesting.
There's dynamic quant. One of the neat things the B70 does do well is the dynamic quantization. So you can take a 16-bit model and have it dynamically quant it to 8-bit. It seems to be what's happening. I'm not really sure. And there's some documentation about that on the LLM Scaler GitHub on Intel. And that is fantastic to see. That's really clever. It's really interesting, and it works surprisingly well for what it promises to do, to dynamically go from 16-bit to 8-bit, and then half the memory usage and blah blah blah. And so, like, if Celestial would enable that same kind of a pathway to 4-bit, and it functions just as well, then yeah, that's going to be something. That'll be something special.
So I remember at the Intel event last year, they teased the XE3P. Whatever became of that? No, nothing yet.
Your guess is as good as mine.
Okay, yeah. Because I mean that was the other thing. I remember that slide went up and it was like, okay, this is the next thing, and I thought maybe that's what this was, the B70, but that sounds like no.
I like the idea of, like, the B70 doesn't lock you out of gaming. Like, you can game on it. So if you were buying it as an experimentalist or a student or something, and it's like, well, I don't want to not have a gaming GPU, you would have a reasonable gaming experience, but that's not why it exists.
Yeah. And also, it's not a selling feature, right? Like
Yeah.
that's more like hey, this can also game if I want to.
Why is it that it's always the GPU compute people are like, oh man, we gotta buy these gaming GPUs because they're way cheaper than the industrial strength GPUs we're supposed to be using. But it never works the other way. It's never like, oh look, the industrial people have some business that's really amazing for games. It's cheaper than the gaming GPUs.
It used to be that way.
I
if you go
know.
back far enough.
Yeah.
It's like, I got a really killer deal on this Volta thing, and then wasn't was that the first GPU where Nvidia said, oh, we should turn this into the Titan, is because there were enough people that were buying the not gaming GPU and gaming on it.
Yeah, there was that, and then there were what was it? It was the Broadwell. I mean, it was not with the Broadwell. It was when they were using the Xeon chipsets to give you like 3-channel memory and 4-channel memory and stuff like that back in the. Anyway, HEPC or whatever it was.
I have noticed some of the big streamers have started using RTX 6000s in their machines for the lulls. I think Markiplier it streams with an RTX 6000, and there's a couple other streamers that stream with an RTX 6000 instead of a 5090.
I mean, I guess when you have that money, why not? Just be like, okay.
What is an RTX 6000? It's 48 gigs of GDDR6. They're
96.
96. Oh boy.
Yeah, so I mean, it's essentially a 5090, but with
a whole
more
RAM.
More RAM.
Yeah.
Okay.
It doesn't have any of the. Remember the ROPS debacle? It doesn't have any of the ROPS disabled either.
Oh yeah.
Wow. I totally forgot about that. Yeah. That was an outrage pony for a while.
Does
ago.
What about 12 volt 2x6? Do people's
just the
machines
one
catch on fire?
Yeah,
Okay.
just the one 12v2. Yeah.
Okay. Anything else on the B70? Is there any follow up coverage that people can look forward to on your channel?
We will definitely have at least one more video. The SR-IOV has come a long way on B50 and B60. The problem, the SR-IOV, when it first launched on the B50, you could have a bunch of virtual functions, but now Intel seems to have limited it to 2. And I really hope they reconsider and limit it to 4, because there was out of the box, it was you could do because it's a 16 gig card. It's 4 gig functions seems reasonable. 2 8 gig functions doesn't seem reasonable. The B60 is 8 or 12 virtual functions, and the B70 is a little sketchy right now with the SR-IOV virtual functions. So we're going to have a follow-up video that tries to unpack all of that. But I haven't even gotten a straight answer from Intel on hey, what's going on with the B50? Did you intentionally? I mean, it seems intentional. There's only 2 virtual functions, but come on. I've got dudes from Intel on video saying at Computex last year, the B50 is going to have at least 4 virtual functions. So it's do I need to publish that? What's going on?
Does that mean when you say the virtual function thing? Does that mean you can run 2 VMs that each have access to this timeshare the GPU?
You get basically the host and a VM, or 2 VMs and no host if you're using it as a secondary GPU. So you can only get 2 independent things running at once. And the B60 is 8 independent things at once. The B70 is 8 or 12.
What's the status of that with NVIDIA and AMD GPUs now?
AMD doesn't do it, not
Okay.
really. And NVIDIA wants to charge you a license. You have to pay a monthly subscription license for NVIDIA, which is so insane.
And it's
like
consumer class cards or for their pro cards? Or both?
For the pro cards.
Okay, and
well,
it won't run on the consumer cards, I assume.
Nope.
I had $3,000 for a GeForce 5090, and all I got was with one lousy VM. Host.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or I'll go you one better. It's if you get the RTX Pro 6000, when it launched, this is another debacle. When the RTX Pro 6000 launched, the workstation version of the card was not available. The Linux kernel version 5, you could use the workstation version of the drivers and they would load. There's something called a mediated device, which is kind of like an SR-IOV replacement. And so for the very specific kernel version that launched and its very specific drivers, which have since been taken down from NVIDIA.com, you could actually get mediated devices to run on the non-workstation version of the RTX Pro 6000. Somebody lost their mind and was like, no, that's not supposed to do that. And so now it only works on the workstation, it only works in the server edition of the RTX Pro 6000. So there's 3 versions of the RTX Pro 6000, and the vGPU stuff only works on the server version now. But that wasn't true when the RTX Pro 6000 launched, because the RTX Pro 6000 launched before the server edition and before the Max-Q. And so And there was also firmware bugs. Like the firmware bugs were so bad, they almost had to recall the cards. And I tried to warn NVIDIA about that ahead of time, but they didn't listen to me. Actually, they treated me like I was crazy. And then they gaslit me that there was nothing broken. And then they were like, yeah, the firmware's broken. We're going to have to like fix that. And then it was like, well, you might have to mail in your GPU. But eventually they did do a firmware update to fix it. But in closing the loop on that, it led to all this mess. So it's just,
Wow.
it's like the Blackwell launch is much rockier than people realize.
Wow. Okay. All right. Well, that's it for B70 testing. Go subscribe over on Level1Techs to see some follow-up coverage. Are you going to continue to add to that blog post? I keep checking
Yes.
it. Okay.
Yeah. We there's a lot of fun stuff that's going on. I just got the new Xeon. The new Xeon 6 is in. I gotta set it up in the new Xeon. So it's like Xeon 6 workstation, 8 memory channels. I'm very excited about testing that and seeing how that goes.
Okay. Then let's move over to questions. Before we do, let's take another break.
Oh, you want to take another break?
Yeah, let's take another
You
break.
want to take a break, or do you want to take an ad break?
No, let's just take an ad break. Let's just take an ad break.
Okay.
Yeah, because I realized that Discord, I did not sign in Discord on this one, so I just got to bring it.
Buy a minute.
I just need to buy a minute,
Yeah, okay.
So
just
stall,
you take it.
stall
Here,
for me.
just post that QR code on the internet, and then everybody will sign into Discord for you.
Perfect. Yeah.
Problem solved.
Take a break, and after this, we'll be back with questions. Crap, that wasn't long enough of
It's
a break.
questions time.
It's questions time. If you have a question and you're watching in the chat right now, at the Full Nerd Network is the easiest way for us to see it and get a question in for one Wendell. Or if you're watching or listening to this later, do you mind muting?
Typing Wendell, they call
Wendell,
him.
real quick.
Sorry.
If you're watching or listening to this later, there's a link to the description or link in the description over to our Discord. Got fine, lovely people over there, and we have a channel called TFN-questions. You can get some questions in to be read, hopefully, here on this show. I'm going to check the YouTube and make sure that I have not missed any super chats first and foremost. No, I have not. Okay, good. What? Did you have something?
No, I was just going to say it takes an incredibly long time for Discord to load on this 2015 MacBook Pro.
Oh yeah, we'll get to it.
Hey,
We will get to it. Yeah,
this week.
teaser.
If only Linux were an option on the MacBook Pro.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Oh, if only. if only, Wendell.
If only. Okay, I don't see any questions over there, so I'm going to go to our Discord. We got one from a friend of the show, ScribeFix. I'm worried about keeping my existing gear as healthy as possible, since who knows when I can next afford upgrades. Great question. So a series of questions. We're going to take it one by one. Does XMP help or hurt with DRAM endurance?
Generally, I don't think it would make a difference. The thing that is, I mean, theoretically having XMP on might be slightly worse, but it seems to me to be the case for regular desktop boards that there is slightly more instability with XMP off than on, because XMP usually is a slightly increased voltage, and that seems to help stability. But you could also make the argument that shortens the lifetime of things. Now, DDR5 has this secret terrible problem, which is it can run hot, and depending on your build, if there's not enough airflow over your DDR5, that may secretly be the source of your instability. I did some videos on this, especially in the context of like a Threadripper workstation, but it's also true of desktops. And an astonishing number of people have shown up on our forum to say, thanks for that video. I was chasing weird instability from my computer, and I just, repointed a fan or added a fan to help more airflow over my DIMMs, even a desktop configuration with just 2 DIMMs. And it has made an unbelievable difference in system stability. These are people reporting, like, I have system instability when my DDR temperature is reported at 60 degrees C. If I keep it under 55, my system is perfectly stable, which seems absurdly low, but there have been so many reports that I think there's something to that.
Yeah, so but at least the longevity question, probably fine. Like maybe, I mean, it is theoretically an overclock, but yeah.
Run hardware info 64 and keep an eye on your temperatures. It's the temperatures that are the worst thing, sustained high temperatures.
Okay. And that'll really depend on the rest of your system, what else is in there.
It's interesting. High temperatures, it turns out, kill almost everything. There was did you see the study that came out a couple weeks ago about the battery longevity, and that extended overheating during charging it turns out way more damaging than extended charge cycles or staying over 80% or below 20% for too long.
That makes sense.
But like
actually.
getting the battery hot while it's charging, it turns out real bad.
Okay. Next question in. This is for one Wendell. Jojo0420 asked, how does one stand such a noisy keyboard, Wendell?
I love it. The Model M is precious and
Wow.
delightful, and no carpal tunnel. Like, I've been using a Model M since I was a teenager, and no carpal tunnel. Knock on wood.
Good God.
Look at you. That's yeah. You're showing off there, Wendell.
You need to come out. You need to come out during the summer sometime to San Francisco and go to the flea market with us. If you like a Model M, you would enjoy the flea market, I think.
Don't forget that they made Model M's in my backyard, so like I have a lot.
Oh, I have no doubt. I'm just saying in terms of archaic hardware that's still usable, there's a lot floating around down there.
Yeah. Okay. I forgot there was other questions from ScribeFix. Is undervolting a GPU or CPU good for longevity?
It can be. If your system is perfectly stable and you've undervolted, then that may, that might help longevity. Generally, I don't like doing either, just because I want the system to be as stable as possible. And I do tend to run XMP. On my workstations, a magical thing happened with 9000 series Threadripper and these new Xeons, and that is like the JetX spec. There's now not a lot of difference between the JetX spec and like overclock, and so the overclock from 6000 to say 7200 is not enough for me, or like 6400 to 7200. And so you can get server memory that is designed to operate like JetX standard at 6400.
Oh.
And so I do that instead of the XMP or Expo 6400. Now XMP Expo 6400, the sub timings are much faster. So there's still a difference.
Depending on what you're doing.
6400s are not the same. But I run JetX 6400 in my Threadripper machines that I use on a daily basis, and that is fantastic.
Okay, all right. How about, this is not specifically for them, but talking about undervolting, whenever I talk to somebody about undervolting and they're worried about the stability stuff, I always point to, okay, well, at least you could do a manual power limit to just say, hey, you know what, run at like 90% of your power, and usually you only give up a little bit of performance, and then you don't have to worry about stability stuff. Is that something you would recommend as well, or no?
That is very smart. That is a much better way to approach that problem, is to just limit the wattage, and because the processor is designed for that a lot better. Actually, there's a guy that runs a data center that I consult with sometimes, and they've added more capacity than they have backup generator capacity. And it's like, oh my gosh, we're going to have to spend $1 million. We can't, buy a new generator, blah, blah, blah. And so they were looking at segregating their servers. So some of the servers they would just turn off if they needed to use the generator, because they have backup batteries. So the backup batteries will keep everything running, but that only gives you like 5 or 10 or 15 minutes. And so it was like, no. I've got the perfect solution for you. And for their AMD machines, it's HSMP. And so with HSMP, you change that on the fly, but from server. So it's like Ryzen Master or whatever on desktop, but you can quickly remote into a bunch of machines and be like, that 350 watts or the 450 watts or whatever, you can come down 50 or 100 watts, and 50 or 100 watts for racks of machines. And it's like, boom, now they're squeaking under their generator limit. So when they're without power, they can issue a command across the fleet, and it'll throttle down all the servers, and their generator can keep them running indefinitely. They don't have to shut down any workload whatsoever. That is a fantastic way to handle that. That is way better than undervolting, and it is literally designed to do that.
Okay, nice. Next question from ScribeFix. How about repasting a CPU or GPU with fresh thermal paste? Does that help with longevity?
Yeah. Look at your temperatures, and if you monitor your temperature over time, you can notice that it's getting worse. And sometimes that's repasting. Sometimes it's a combination of repasting and cleaning your heat sinks and cleaning your fans out. Like, that kind of maintenance can be really good. But if you screw it up, your longevity thing is out the window.
Right.
So.
Yeah. Okay. And then last question from them. What else could they do? What else could you point to that would help maybe give more longevity to people's devices?
You'd be surprised how much difference a double conversion UPS can make battery backup. especially if you're in an area where the power is a little sketchy. So like if you run your machine all the time and it's just on all the time, a double conversion UPS will insulate it from the horrors of your local power grid. And don't be shy about running, your Ethernet cable or something like that through surge suppression that the UPS provides.
How can you tell if your local power is dirty, Wendell?
Usually the UPS gives you telemetry on that, like
Okay.
how often it's over voltage or how often it's under voltage. You can get a graph of the voltage over time. So like if some days it's 117 volts and other days it's 125 volts, it's like, that's a little sus.
Is like if you don't have a UPS already, is it like you fire up a game and the lights in your office dim? Is that a good indicator?
That's a good indicator that something ain't right.
Like, why is the office flickering?
Weird.
Or the lights flickering? Weird. We got a fresh new question in right for Wendell. Just hot off the presses from one Will Smith. Wow, the actor Will Smith is in
Welcome
our
to Earth.
Discord.
Hey,
Yeah, welcome to
love
Earth.
that
Do you think the 9950X3D2, the sequel, is going to be the hot new CPU for running metal game servers going for metal? Like metal.
Bare metal.
bare metal.
game
Okay.
servers.
Will it replace the GOAT 14900K?
Yes. Yeah. I think that I think AMD does not, because like if you look at it, it's like you don't have to. It's like Vcache on both CCDs. It's like games don't really run well across CCDs, whether or not you have the Vcache. Like if you get a 9950X, like you already know, like core parking, it's already a thing. But game servers, like there are folks in our community that have hundreds of game servers, and they have a lot in their fleet that are based around the 9800X 3D, and they've literally told me, I really wish that I could get this because the 9950X game server isn't as good as the 9950 or the 9800X 3D server, but I can only run half as many versus the other one
on a machine in the rack
on a machine. Yeah. And they don't want to run Epic.
because of the
they don't
clock
wanna run-
speeds.
Not just they tried F, like the F clock speeds is 5 gigahertz. It's more to do with the blast radius. So like if the game server code is not really all that stable, and so like if something bad happens and it takes out the whole machine, you've just taken out 50 instances, because a lot of those game servers, they only need like 2 or 4 cores. They don't need a lot of cores. They'd much rather have multiple different machines. Everything is more consistent. Everything is more stable, spread across a bunch of machines than 1 or 2 or 3 giant servers.
Well, it's interesting because one of the things that's changed in the last few years, even since I started working on this, is that people are doing hybrid. Like for a new game launch, if you have a multiplayer game that requires servers, you do a hybrid rollout where you buy a relatively small number of bare metal machines because you get way more users per machine on metal machines than virtual machines. Typically, the cost is fixed and easily controllable versus like AWS. Sometimes they'll charge you $1 just opening the console to see how much money you spent that much. And so you do a relatively small number of bare metal, a base level, like your minimum runtime, and then you expand with AWS or PlayFab or whatever your back end infrastructure is for cloud servers. But then, like, we're also seeing people start to do, for games that are relatively small numbers of players, some peer-to-peer where they're vetting peer-to-peer hosting and doing just NAT punching. And like if somebody's on like a nice gaming machine, they can host their game themselves, and it'll be, if it's a non-competitive game, it really doesn't matter. So if you're playing like I don't know, what Helldivers is a good example, I guess, where like there's no host advantage in Helldivers because it's a co-op game. But at the same time, the folks who make Helldivers don't have to pay for server hosting for a bazillion people, just the console users, which is nice. Anyway.
Nice. Okay. We got a question in from Doom Boots. Said, what about the B65? That was on the slide deck. Haven't seen much talk about it.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything about that either from my. But it's been a year, so maybe the B70 was going to be the B65, and they're like, I'll just call it the B70. I don't know.
Okay. Yeah.
Can we do 48 gigs? Is like 48 gigs an option? It's like, no, 48 gigs is not an option. In this economy, are you insane?
Yeah. Come on.
Okay.
Come on. All right. Let's get to another question over on the Discord. This one comes in hot from Identified as Xbox. Friend of the show, Sneaky. Can can we bring back DVD-RW now that storage pricing is so high? Rewritable
Gosh, wouldn't it be
DVDs.
nice to have a rewritable medium that holds about 40 terabytes? That'd be amazing.
Yeah.
That would be so good. Tapes, Wendell. Just get those VHS tapes out.
There
you know?
you go.
They were so slow.
Mini DV.
Oh yeah.
I mean, is there any physical storage medium that we're not aware of over on the consumer side? That is a big deal over on your
We're going to
side.
be using mechanical hard drives as like backup cartridges in the not too distant future.
Really?
You know.
Wow. Okay.
You mean the backup is just that you have another data center and you copy everything from one data center to the other one, and then if one data center goes away, you still got number two.
Yeah,
There we go.
I mean that's the only option really. And that's what Amazon is literally telling their customers. You know, probably a little spicy for this, but there's some locations in Amazon regions that are just hard down, and it's like, what do we do? And Amazon's like, I don't know. Hope your data was in another region.
Did was that why the internet was janky yesterday?
Yeah, a little bit maybe.
Amazon had a had an oopsie.
It wasn't Amazon's oopsie.
Oh, who's oopsie? What? Oh,
Yeah.
That kind of down, like
Yeah.
like hole in the ground down now. Oh,
Yeah.
that's bad.
Yikes.
It's yeah. I don't think the Amazon terms of service has like, oops, your data center got bombed in the
Yeah.
in the uptime contract. I guess.
Boy. Okay.
Yeah,
Jesus.
You're responsible for your own. They're pretty upfront with you're responsible for your own availability zone replication, and if you don't do that, that's on you.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense. Side question is, why are web/video hosting not feeling the pinch yet? That's a really good question.
I think they are.
Yeah?
Yeah.
It's not affecting us though. I mean, I can still upload whatever I want on YouTube. There ain't stopping me.
They are deleting a lot of channels though, like kind of a lot.
Really?
Of old channels,
yeah.
like moribund channels, or
Somewhat, but also there've been a lot of people that have complained. Is like, hey, I got caught in the filter or whatever, and they're just going on an expunge spree. For that kind of stuff.
Interesting.
For the other providers, there are a lot of smaller providers that have said we've been displaced out of the data center because it's more economical to do ABC, XYZ. There've been a couple articles too. It's like, your small game server costs so much to maintain like a game server that it's like they're going to just shut it down. It's like, well, that's why it should be like the old school thing where you can just host your own. It's like I'm going to host my own Unreal Tournament or Quake server or whatever as it was in the old days.
look, we could have a whole episode about that. It turns out it's complicated, and it's like the normal thing where like 5% of nerds are willing to do the work of figuring out how to play a game when you're presented with an enormous host browser. But if you take 95% of the audience, because like I worked on a game where we literally brought in testers to test the host browser thing, because we had an enormous internal fight about, we should just let people run their own servers for this. And when we brought people into test, we literally paid people like $10 to come in for an hour and play the game, and nobody could figure out how to join the games. Like nobody could figure out how to work a host browser. Now, one thing that's changing is I think like the rise of the secure boot DRM stuff puts you in an interesting situation where you don't have to treat user-hosted servers. Like Valve, for example, if you host a Counter-Strike server, then you're in a different kind of matchmaking pool than the official Valve-hosted and Valve partner-hosted Counter-Strike servers, because they know that they're clean, they know they don't have a bunch of mods on them, and they know that they're going to provide the same competitive playing field as all the other official servers. But you can host a Counter-Strike server for your friends or your community to play on. That won't show up in the main matchmaking pool, but one of the things that people are starting to experiment with is with the rise of secure boot, and a secure boot, you can assume that a Windows user will have secure boot on. You can assume that they're not going to build a cheater server. They're not going to be able to run a cheater server if the server's signed, the OS is locked, the secure boot's on, all that stuff. So presumably we'll be able to get back to a place where community members are able to host servers that show up as official-ish, like higher tier kind of servers, which is exciting. It could be coming back, is I guess what I'm saying.
That would be cool.
Yeah. I like this kind of thing. I think also, kind of parallel to that, you have services like Tailscale that are peer-to-peer, and I think that we're going to see more software lean into, hey, here's my movie collection. Let's all have movie night together, even though we live on opposite ends of the country. and all of that happens over private infrastructure, which would be impossible. Like you couldn't. Discord, I think, has like a movie night type thing built in, but it's for like streaming your desktop to somewhere else, and it's not like quote unquote public infrastructure. I think that we get more stuff like that as economic crunches happen and as streaming service costs go up. There is kind of a return to that kind of a thing where it's, let's share this experience together, whether that's a game server or whether that's, Mystery Science Theater movie thing or whatever.
Okay. All right. We have another question over on Discord that just came hot in off the presses from Manager. For PC longevity, would you suggest using a Carbonaut thermal pad and forget monitoring the paste dryness? Good question.
I don't have enough long-term data to really. I mean, maybe theoretically that seems like that would be fine, but I don't have enough long-term data to really tell you. I've been using Arctic paste like MX345 now I think 7 for years and years and years, and I've generally not had a problem with paste drying out, even for the machines that I've used for 5 years plus.
Okay. Yeah. I feel like the floor on good paste, right? Like ones that a lot of people use, the floor on good paste has been really good.
Well, and there's also options that are designed to last longer. Like it's funny, I always used for years and years and years in the lab, we used to use that Arctic Silver. It was the white paste that was specifically for like labs where you're taking stuff on and off all the time. It was easy to remove and it was high performance, but it did dry out over time. And about 2 years after I left Maximum PC, I called Gordon. I was like, hey, my computer's gotten really wonky. Do you have any idea what's going on? He was like, hey, what paste did you use? And I said, I use the stuff we always use in the lab. He's like, oh, no, you can't do that if you're going to leave it on there for 2 years. It'll get crusty and gross. So,
yeah.
That Duranaut stuff that I put on my daughter's PC, when I had to pop it open a few months ago, a year and a half after I rebuilt it, I was blown away because it's still I could have just smacked the cooler back on and it would have been fine.
Yeah.
I thought
Tell it
about
to monitor the temperatures.
Yeah.
All right. A couple more and then we'll get out of here. Coolio Cube 519 over on YouTube asks, would it make sense to get a single B70 for local AI? I mainly use AI for coding, and I've been thinking that a small local model for quick code changes might have some tokens, save some tokens.
That's 32 gigs. I'm blown away by how good the models are that are relatively small, but the Quen, you might be able to run 32 gigs really. I think 2. Like you get more than twice as good having 64 gigs of VRAM, especially for like coding tasks, because the coding task really needs the deeper context. It is good. You could use one model to manage the other. So like for the cloud thing, there's this it sounds crazy, but there's a skill for Claude that is make it talk like a caveman, and that reduces the token usage by like 60-75%. And so you can have your small model manage Claude and force Claude to converse with it in caveman mode, and then it can explain to you what Claude is doing. And that is going to be more economical for token savings than anything, which is hilarious, but also terrifying.
Okay, yeah.
Have you all played Poetry for Neanderthals? It's an incredible like party game that you play with little kids where you get it gives you basically you have a big inflatable club and you get a word like a noun and you have to describe what the noun is charade style, but only talking like a caveman. So if you use too many, I can't remember what the exact rule is, but if you use non-caveman speak, then you get whacked on the head with the inflatable club. It's a remarkable game.
That's pretty funny.
Played that with Claude.
Is there anything that you would suggest AI wise for a single card use?
Probably one of the Quen 3.5, but one of the small Quen 3.5s. Gemma 4 also has some really small models that are astonishingly good. The thing that I think is unexpected is that the intelligence per token has gone through the roof. And there's also this idea of like a dense model versus a mixture of experts, and the dense models for both Gemma and Quen are mind-blowing. I think it's like 26 billion parameters and 31 billion parameters or something like that, but all of those are active at once, and that is really tough on like the Strix Halo or the NVIDIA Spark, because when all of the parameters are active, that is really hard on your memory bandwidth. And something like that on, you know, the B70 is a much better situation. But it's gonna be better because you're using almost all your parameters for the model. There's not much room there for context, which is unfortunate. So it's like you can almost have one card for context and one card for. It doesn't really work like that under the hood, but you get two, and it's like, oh yeah, I can do the thing. But the Gemma models are worth checking out. They just came out like a week ago, and the intelligence of those models, it's really. I would never have thought that a model that small could be that good, but they are shockingly good for the size.
I was going to say, do you like setting up OpenClaw a few weeks ago? I was kind of surprised at how little information there is for people who want to run their own models locally. It almost seems like they assume that once you get to that point, you already know how everything works, and you're not starting there from scratch. If you just have hardware, like I guess people don't have just have hardware laying around unless they're in a weird situation. But
I mean, maybe.
Do you have guides for that stuff on the Level 1 forums?
Yeah, there's a couple from a long time ago that are like the 128 gig. It's like DeepSeek R528 or R521 and 128 gigs, and most of that still applies.
Okay.
And so that video's got like 100,000 views. The problem is that it's hard to acquire that much memory and that much stuff.
Yeah.
The real problem is that unless you have what is now kind of an absurd amount of hardware, meaning like two 3090s or better, like two 3090s is kind of the entry point for like where you're really feeling how steep this bathtub curve is, where you look at it and you say, this is really astonishing what it does. In the context of you can't run very large models, when you're running some of the new models in relatively low VRAM, it's mind-blowing. But the difference between that and like $50 gets you millions upon millions of tokens in the cloud. And so if you use that and then you use like what's running local, you're like, wow, local is trash. I will never want to run anything that's local. But me, I'm a crazy person. I've got 4 RTX Pro 6000s, and I'm running 4 RTX Pro 6000s, and I'm sitting here thinking, this is as good as GPT 5.1 was, and I'm running it entirely local on only 4 RTX Pro 6000.
Yeah, just only. That's fine.
It's also worth mentioning you live someplace where electricity is relatively inexpensive, if I recall.
Yes,
so that helps.
The electricity is basically free.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, we'll get one more question in here, and then we'll get out of here. Doom Boots asked another question. I picked up some DDR5 ECC engineering sample RAM accidentally. It runs fine, but I've never seen...
is that wrapped in asbestos or something?
I don't
Fell
know.
off the back of the truck?
Accidentally. Yeah, I don't know. It runs fine, but I've never seen ES RAM in the wild before. Any experience different than ES CPUs at all?
Generally, it's fine. It's just the timings and some other things. You might have trouble bringing that memory forward to a newer platform. So, like a lot of the time, like the training is weird or something doesn't work right. Generally, ES, it's fine if it works. But you can run a memory benchmark and just make sure that the latency is about where it should be and that the transfer rate is about where it should be, and you should be fine. But I have seen weird situations where, like, I had some ES memory that worked great on, there was DDR5. It was like launch day DDR5. And it worked great on launch day DDR5 platforms, but was borderline unusable on anything newer.
Wow. Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
New RAM standards, man. It's a scary time.
Yeah, love
Yeah.
it. It's also a scary time because we got to let Wendell go. Wendell, thanks for hanging out.
It's been fun.
Yeah,
You guys
always
are
good
awesome.
chatting with you. I mean, we could chat for hours and hours, but we got lunch. We're hungry.
I'm fine.
Oh, yeah.
I can keep going.
Okay.
If your body's weak, that's fine.
Yeah,
We
it's
can
true.
punch out.
It is true. Would you like people to go to check out your stuff, Wendell?
You can check out Level1Techs or forum.level1techs, or it's just Level1Techs on YouTube. Level 1 Linux, if you're into Linux. I'm Super
you
Pro
should be.
AI, but there's, Linux is like, Super Pro Linux. So you can have your fill of whichever thing you're into. I don't know.
Do you also own the domain level1, number 1, text, TEX.com?
Oh, I don't think so.
Okay, maybe I should buy that. Yeah.
You should get him a cowboy hat and buy that domain,
Yeah, I'm just going to put it in here, Level1Techs.
I really enjoyed
Level 1 Tex-Mex.
Yeah, nothing.
Wendell, I really enjoyed the videos you did with Steve over at Gamers Nexus about benchmarking on Linux. Games for Linux. It was I learned a lot and appreciate that work. So
Yeah.
I hope
There
there's
was
more
a lot of it depends. TM.
I mean, look, it depends could be the entirety of the Linux benchmarking story, it turns out, because it's complicated.
Well, I also think the context too, and I know I always harp on this too, is that what are you trying to benchmark, right? Like you gotta, like, it's one thing to just run all the benchmarks in Linux, but are you trying to test Linux? Are you trying to test the generational differences between GPUs? Are you trying to test the game itself? I think that's where a lot of people, I'm not calling Steve out here. He knows how to benchmark stuff. But I'm just saying, there's a lot of people out there who don't understand, what are you benchmarking for? What are you trying to benchmark? Kind of thing. So, yeah.
There was a guy on the forum who just this week, like, smart guy, knows what he's doing. He did not take the performance governor out of power save while gaming and was like, my GPU is being weirdly slow. And it's like, no, not the GPU. Your CPU has been told to save power, and it's saving power everywhere it can.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, yep, that was it.
It happens. All right. Well, yeah. Check back next week for your fix of PC talk here on The Full Nerd. If you want to watch this live, head over to youtube.com/ what is it? The Full Nerd Network. You can catch us 10:30 a.m. ish every Tuesday at
We were
Pacific
ready to go
time.
this time.
Yeah. Somebody was here on time.
Look, man, I want to talk about it was a weird morning.
Yeah. But that's okay. If you want to watch us, you can also watch us over on. We have the video version now over on Spotify.
Wow.
I wish we were on
Spotify.
Apple Podcasts, but that's a whole separate thing. We'll figure out later. But we do have the video version over there. But it's okay. You don't have to watch us. You could just listen to us. We're on all the places that the fine RSS feeds point to. We should be there. I saw something about TuneIn now allowing submissions again. Maybe we should. I don't know if our new one is on TuneIn. They stopped accepting new podcast submissions
because there's an infinite number of podcasts now.
I don't know. I didn't read it, but it popped up in my podcast newsletter. So anyway,
that's exciting.
We'll see. For all the people who are listening on TuneIn
Yeah.
or would like to listen on TuneIn, let us know.
Latest newsletter.
Yeah. If you wanna read The Full Nerd, then Elena has a newsletter that comes hot and fresh to your inbox every Friday.
I was really excited. Last week there was an audio version of that newsletter too, which I loved.
Yeah, a lot of people missed it.
Oh,
Because
really?
a lot of people just consume it on YouTube. We should have had a video version.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well,
So,
I mean, it was good. I didn't get this week's though yet, so my feed must be broken.
Well, it's not Friday yet. So, maybe there'll be the audio version this week as well.
Okay.
But yeah,
that's
if
good
you
to
want
know.
the audio version of the newsletter, then check next week's or last week's. It's there. Also, we have other fine podcasts on the Full Nerd Network. One of the Dual Boot Diaries, where Will and I are chronicling our adventures of trying to learn Linux. We should have you on again soon, Wendell, because there's more to dive into than you realize. I feel like we've come a long way in 6 months.
It's been a long road.
Yeah, it's been a long road. I would like to think that you would feel proud of me. It's at least whenever I do something, I'm like, what would Wendell say? Would he be proud?
He literally does. We have a regular segment called "What Would Wendell Say?" And,
actually, we should start.
Yeah, we should make a T-shirt that says "What would Wendell say?"
Yeah.
If you are productive after all this time, you guys are doing great.
Wow.
I mean, we're using it.
This is right now. At 12 months, I crossed the longest time I've ever used Linux as my main daily driver.
Oh yeah. So we're coming up on.
So we're coming up on.
Yeah, we're coming up on it. All right.
Maybe it'll be
Nice.
the Debian, the 2004, 2003 Debian year.
Okay. Also, Wendell, you might not know this, but there's a new podcast on the Full Nerd Network called Expedition Handheld, where myself and one Russ Crandall from Retro Game Core talk about handheld gaming. And this week's episode, I'm very excited because I got some new handhelds.
Wait, is that emulating something? Let me see.
No,
that thing.
this is an actual Game Boy Advance that I bought from a friend of the show, Steve Lynn.
This is the one that this is
Or
one, that
one of them. Yeah.
Steve
So
re-upped.
yeah.
I can't remember how to turn this on.
We're just gonna sit here for
There
a
it
minute.
is.
Oh, there
I
you go.
found it. There's a physical
Got him.
switch on the bottom. Oh man, still no backlight,
Dude.
It's what the kids crave.
I don't want to burn pod for this week's episode, but
Yeah.
when I tried to play this, and I was like, how did we ever play without backlight?
I took mine apart. This was one of the first hardware mods I ever did. Was I popped it off and put the backlight kit on it.
How did we ever do
It stunk.
What? Also, it made me think. Were there laptops back in the day that didn't have backlit?
Most laptops didn't have
Really?
backlights until like the 2000s. Like that and Wi-Fi were the two things that made laptops a thing for normal people.
Dude, I mean, a wired laptop, I could see, especially laptops in the day being so big. But yeah,
When I started working in 1998, Grandpa here.
back in my day,
Back when I was a boy, we literally, I worked in the Department of Biology for the University of Tennessee doing IT server stuff and like help desk work. I was the second IT guy that they had, and we had one laptop that we both shared for like if that was like the on-call laptop if we needed to remote in when we were away. And it was literally like one of us would take it home one night and one of us would take it home the other night because everything else was desktops. Like all of our desktops were, I think, gateways probably at that point. It was wild.
great.
Yeah.
Elena's in the chat. Hey, Elena, if you can pop over this week's podcast version of the newsletter.
We need the audio.
Let
we
me
don't
know.
have it to get it up.
Yeah. We got to get it up in time for Friday. Anyway, I think that's it. So now I should thank Wendell for coming on once again.
Oh, thank you for having me. That's been great.
Yeah, and we should talk at Computex.
Yes.
Yeah,
That'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah, catch up there. Also, thank you, Will, for
it's a
hanging
pleasure.
out and controlling the verticals and horizontals.
I do need more buttons though.
More buttons.
Buttons
and dials.
I'd take a dial.
Yeah, or how about 6?
Give me like one big
Four.
knob. I'd take one big it's turn it up and
Does
see.
Elgato make a big knob?
No, but I mean
Oh,
other
okay.
people make knobs.
Sure, yeah, okay. Anyway, and thanks everybody for watching. I appreciate or listening, whatever. I appreciate you. And until next week, be good.
That's it.
Yep, that's it. Just be good. That was a fade. That wasn't a haircut, by the way. Now it's fade to black.
Okay, audio.